Participants, after going through the various issues pertaining to poor water governance, now we understand that there is an urgent need for reforms in water sector. It becomes imperative as due to long years of negligence and unregulated use, over 1500 blocks of 256 districts of country are seriously water depleted. Currently, agricultural and domestic users pay a minimum or almost no charge for using water. It is already recommended that integrated management of water resources, the need for the government to become a facilitator rather than a provider, and the need to promote cost effectiveness responsive to consumer needs and cost recovery. Central and state programs on the water continued to be structured to fit existing administrative boundaries such as state, district, block, gram panchayat, with little consideration to resources, basin and watershed boundaries. Successive national water policies have tried to reflect ground realities and propose strategies for efficient management, including the formation of river basin authorities. Despite it, mechanism for an efficient policy implementation could not be created. For instances, National Water Policy 2012 included progressive idea based on the emerging focus areas, best practices from the field, and brought in much required reform in the domain of water resources management on the paper, yet could not bridge the gap between policy and practice. As issues of scarcity, access, depletion, contamination, equity and climate change continue to plug the water sector constantly, the government and other agencies have also increased their investment in the sector. In the last decade itself, several state governments launched flagship programs on water to address one or more of these issues. For it was needed to have a good understanding of existing paradigm of water governance. The water crisis in India has a very close link with the prevailing paradigm of water governance in India. According to Mr. Mihir Shah, a top water policy expert in India, without urgent reforms and paradigm shift in water governance, India's water problem cannot be solved. He has characterized the existing paradigm by a set of 12 key features, dimensions and principles. These principles are: whether it is be river or groundwater, the dominant paradigm is of the command and control. There is no understanding of a river system or their interconnections with the health of catchment areas or groundwater. Another one is large centralized decaying bureaucracies are charged with administering water throughout the length and width of India. Next one is Indian water policy documents remained ignorant of the importance of groundwater management, and the integrity of river systems is still not understood. If we go to the next one, since the goal is command and control through dam construction and groundwater extraction, the only disciplines evoked are engineering and hydrology. That too in their narrowest version. Water cannot be understood with this narrow disciplinary focus. If we look for another aspect, since the focus is extraction and development, all the dimensions of water other than economic resource use are ignored. These various other dimensions are, however, of critical importance to primary stakeholders of water in India. Besides, we have divided water in silos of groundwater and surface water, as also irrigation and domestic use, with little dialogue across silos, leading to hydroschizophrenia, where the left hand of the drinking water does not know what the right hand of irrigation is doing, and the left foot of the surface water does not know what the right foot of the groundwater is doing. Another issue is the way we look at our rivers is a water resource to be exploited, ignoring completely the numerous ecosystem services provided by living river systems, as also intrinsic values of rivers for our people and other form of life. The entire focus has been on augmenting supplies with little attention being paid to water demand management. Another aspect is in preoccupation with the extraction and development, there has generally been an absence of consideration of sustainability, endangering the future of both groundwater and river flows. Another aspect is historical forms of discrimination combined with the impact of growing economic inequalities in countries create severe discrimination in access to water on the grounds of caste, class, gender, location and community. Besides, over the years, there has been needless secrecy in the access to water data and information for researchers and stakeholders that has only meant the quality of the water management has suffered and conflicts have got exacerbated. Another aspect is the legal framework governing water belongs to 19th century British common law, which legitimizes and perpetuates inequality in access to water by giving unlimited power of the water withdrawal to owners of the land. According to Mr. Shah, water stress is just one aspect of water security. Similar to any other challenges, it can be tackled by proper and efficient management. Hence, the new paradigm would need to have following features, principles and dimensions. To start with, rather than command and control, our attempt need to be fully appreciated and apprehend the enormous diversity that characterize this nation and plan our interventions in full cognizance and understanding of this diversity, making them as location specific as possible to avoid the pitfalls of indiscriminate centralized planning. Watershed aquifers and river system would be the cornerstone of such planning. Another one is rather than making governance the sole responsibility of government, we need to craft a carefully designed architect of partnership where all the primary stakeholders get deeply involved in the collective endeavor of participating water governance. We must acknowledge that we cannot understand water other than in a profoundly multidisciplinary and transboundary perspective. This involves not just engineering and hydrology but also river ecology, agroeconomy, soil science, the various social sciences and management among others. Besides, we must adopt the perspective proposed in the current draft of the National Water Framework Law, which states that water is the common heritage of the people of India, is essential for substances of life in all of its forms, an integral part of the ecological system, sustaining and being sustained by it, a basic requirement for livelihood, a cleaning agent, a necessary input for the economic activity such as agriculture, industry and commerce, a mean of transportation, a mean of recreation, an inseparable part of people's landscape, society, history and culture, and in many cultures a sacred substance being venerated in some as a divinity. Additionally, the proposed National Water Commission will hopefully help us taking an integrated view of the water so that current schizophrenia can be overcome, ensuring the protection of watershed, river systems and endangered aquifers. Besides, rather than seeking to endless augmented supply of the water, the focus must shift to effectively managing demand so that we recognize the finite nature of resources and the sustainable use will be impossible without this shift. The supply side thrust is a viscous infinite regress with no end in sight other than depletion of quantities and qualities. Besides, we need to centrally emphasize imperative to end discrimination in access to water on the ground of caste, class, gender, location and community as emphasized in the National Water Framework Law. Additionally, the issue here is not just access to information, which should have transparency, but also the availability of information in a manner and form that is useful to and usable by primary stakeholders. The aim must be to proactively offer water solutions to problem people face. Besides, the draft National Water Framework Law provides an essential corrective to British common law by providing upon the public trust doctrine and enunciated by the Supreme Court, whereby the state at all levels hold natural resource in trust for community. It would ensure that no one's use of water would be able to deprive anyone of their right to water for life as defined under the National Water Framework Law. While summarizing this lecture, I would emphasize that reform should be based on principles like full cost recovery, rationalization of the water tariff, privatization and public-private partnership across urban, rural and agriculture subsectors. They should paving the way for privatization, commercialization and commodification of water sector with emphasis on water sustainability. Thanks.